Okay, there is quite literally hundreds of characters in the Angry Birds franchise, and some of them perfectly represent the 7 deadly sins. And some of them particularly get very interesting the deeper we go. 7 deadly sins being pride, wrath, sloth, greed, lust, gluttony, and envy. So let's take a closer look at some of the darker aspects of these characters and bring a light to what they really are like behind closed doors. And trust me, some of these they get a bit wild. And with the first bird in the flock being the obvious choice of Red being this deadly sin of wrath. Wrath is defined by being extremely angry, and there is too many times that we see Red showing glimpses of temper and is often finding himself being either irritated or just flat out angry, especially at the pigs for stealing the eggs, which is the whole plot of basically every Angry Birds game to mind. But his quick to anger personality fits the description of wrath as a sin, where his sin reacts strongly to any perceived injustice or any annoyance that comes to mind, and that's why he perfectly fits the sin of wrath. Next we have a prideful sin being pride, which is best fitted by most triangularly of the whole flock, the fastest, the yellowest of them all, Chuck. Pride is the feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's self-achievement, and this is seen too many times throughout the whole franchise in the games, also the movie, and also the tunes. And we all know Chuck for being incredibly fast and loves to show off his speed, which is one of his personality traits basically at this point, which often leads him to being very overconfident in himself. And this leads to him having a lot of self-assurance, which not always a bad thing, can sometimes though be seen as arrogant in nature, and his belief that he can do better than others just shows off the definition of pride. Not always a negative thing, but in this case it's actually seen as being a negative thing, and he often just finds himself as being superior to others, showing off that he can do whatever they do better, which is the definition of pride and why he fits this deadly sin absolutely perfectly down to the definition. Next up we have greed, the intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, and or food. And this might not go to who you expect it to go to, and that's going to be King Pig. You may think, if you are familiar with the deadly sins, one of them perfectly represent King Pig, but no, this perfectly represents King Pig. I'm going to explain why. King Pig is consistently shown to always be driven by his desire for wanting more, primarily more on the food basis, from the definition being food, wealth, or power. And he is primarily motivated by food, especially those delicious looking white eggs. They're ginormous, and I feel like they should have hatched by now. 2009, I think they should have hatched. Maybe they're dead or something, but I'm not a zoologist, okay? His willingness to go to any lengths to satisfy his cravings, particularly at the cost of others, no matter what, makes him the definition and the personal embodiment of greed in the series. And I feel like he perfectly represents greed greater than any other in the series as being this deadly. Next up we have one that you may be expecting, and it might be a bit of debate, being sloth, which is basically the definition of being lazy. And this is actually going to go to Terence. Yes, I do know he has been seen to be quite fast, quite dedicated, and always motivated and always moving, but we never see him doing these things. And he's famously known for being silent, rarely moving or taking action unless absolutely necessary, always in the back lingering. But wow, does he do his job efficiently. He does it amazingly, gets it done, but he's generally just a laid back, nonchalant dreadhead in the back of class, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's just there. His stationary demeanor combined with the minimalistic approach that he just has, that he communicates to everybody, and his effort throughout all the series just aligns with what we would define as the sin of sloth. And not fully do we have seen that he is the embodiment of just being lazy, but we do see that he isn't as active as some of the other boards in the series. That is why we have to give him the virtue, or more like the sin, of being sloth, which isn't a bad thing in this sense, but has to be deemed to somebody, and I feel like Terence best suits that. Next up, we have the deadly sin of gluttony, which is basically the excess in eating. And I was debating about putting King Pig here, because we see throughout the tunes that he eats whatever, whenever, and everything, no matter the cost in eating. But there's somebody that was a dark force in this debate, and that's going to be Bubbles. Bubbles caught me off guard when I thought about it. I was like, when people said bubbles, I said what? I was confused. But going through a lot of tunes and a lot of research, intensive research, matter of fact, I have seen that yes, he has a vicious appetite, especially when it comes to candy. That's the particular one that he lives and dies for. No matter, he overindulges no matter what it is, and that is the embodiment of gluttony. And he seems to have an unbeatable resistance to not eat food. It has to be done, and tends to do it on the overconsumption, which is exactly how you get gluttony. And that is why I've placed him on this sin rather than King Pig or any of the pigs, because the pigs normally would get this sin, but it's actually going to one of the birds in this situation. Next up, we have envy, and this one is actually quite interesting. Envy is basically having the desire to have something or a trait that somebody else has, and nobody best suits this by yet another dark force in this debate, being the chef pig. Often feels envious of the bird's abilities and also the possessions, and we can see this being some of the possessions, obviously being the eggs. His desire to possess what the birds have fueled his competitive fire that was in his natural nature, spiteful in means, and this perfectly aligns with what envy embodies in the series and also via definition. And his constant desire that he cannot easily obtain it makes him yet again another fire burn within him, wanting what the birds have, but he just can't get it. You may be wondering, where's the last one? There's 7 deadly sins, the last one being lust. And lust is boiled down to having an intense desire, and we can put this in to one character that a lot of people left underneath the rug to say, and that's going to be Gail. If you don't know who Gail is, that is the purple bird that was introduced in the Angry Birds Stella spin-off, which is basically the purple girl. And the reason why I've put her is Gail is known to manipulate others, particularly using her charm and her attractiveness to do whatever she wants. But a common mistake that lust is known for is it's not just about a certain desire that I can't say on this website, but it's also represented by an intense craving for power. And throughout the whole game, and also we can see a lot more in depth about in the tunes, Angry Birds Stella. If you haven't watched that, you can go watch it. It's great. You should give it a watch if you're into the Angry Birds series. But we can see a heavy craving for power or control, or both of them. And Gail's actions often demonstrate a strong desire for both of these influences. These are just some characters that I feel perfectly represent the definition and some of the traits that you would see if the 7 deadly sins were represented by the 7 selected Angry Birds characters. And if you have any debates about this, let me know in the comments. Have you ever taken a close look at the Angry Birds flock? No, a deeper look. No, deeper. No, okay, not that deep, okay. Have you ever wondered if they have any dark secrets? Oh yeah, that gym guy was holding a dead red in the Angry Birds epic. Do you ever wonder what these dark secrets could be?